Welcome to the third lesson where we'll be covering lists and dictionaries with a few more examples. All right, so if we go through the notes, we're going to be using lists with the Excel dataset that we've used before, just to cover the basic principles. So there are a few more built-in functions of lists that we can use. Now, previously, we used the features of a min, max, and length, and sum. So those four built-in features of lists that we can use. So there are actually more. The first one being count. You can, for example, count how many times the value is in a list. For example, 49, 2, and 30. Only 1, 0, and 2 list. You can also reverse items in a list, copy list, clear list, add lists together, and so on, as I show you in these examples. Lastly, we can also sort values in a list. For example, we can sort age in ascending order. In descending, you just make reverse true. And then you can also sort the list based on the number of characters, for example. So to do that, you have to define a new function called length sort. You don't have to worry too much of how this is defined, but just try and copy and paste as it is. And then you can sort the list based on the number of characters. All right. And then here's an output of those functions that you have done above. So mixed lists, right? So up to now, we've only covered lists that have the same data type, but in fact, you can actually put any type of data or data type in a list itself, right? So if you see here, you can actually create a list with square brackets. You can have various types of numbers. You can have strings as well. Remember, string is just a word with just a word or text with apostrophe. And you can print that out and you have it. Very importantly is you can do many things with lists. You can print all the values just using the colon. You can add items to the end of a list using a pin function. We can add items to specific positions using insert. We can remove an item using remove. We can check how many variables in a list using the length. And we can print a range of values maybe using start, colon, end, just like in Excel, right? If you want to maybe have select a certain range in Excel, use a colon from the first cell to the second cell. You can do the same thing with the list as well. Let's look at a few examples. So we have my list, which we created above already. Just using the colon, we can look at all the values. If you want to append pi to the end of the list, you see it's added to the end. To insert a position index 1, which is actually this one over here, it will go there. You can remove values, and you can find the length of it as well. And for the range again, we want to maybe only show the first until the third value. It shows 0, 1, 2. And importantly, this 3 doesn't actually show the third value, it shows the one before. So you see 42 minus 281, 6.283. So it's 0, 1, and 2. The last value is actually the one is the last value minus 1. All right. So these are pretty useful things to know about lists, which you'll use quite often. So you can also group a list. So we said you can use various types of data types of lists. You can even add a list to itself. So, so you can see what I've done here in these examples. I've actually added the age and country lists into a list itself. So I can actually group them together, which is a lot easier to actually work with instead of having to name them separately. So, for example, to access, certain lists, you would just use single square brackets. If you want to access the specific values in this list, you would use double square brackets. So here are a few examples so that you can go through and try and work out, and you should see that the values pop out as I've shown this output over here. So it's very important to try to understand, how lists are created and how you can manipulate it to get outputs that you want. So there's one more data type, which is called a dictionary. And a dictionary is pretty useful as it's unordered, right? And it's structured with keys and values, and it's defined with curly brackets. So the keys are like column names and values are the lists of data, right? So for example, we're going to define maybe a column name called age, gender, and country. We have to use apostrophes and just put in age lists, gender lists, country lists with a colon to assign it to that key value or the key name. And to print it out, we can print all the keys and values. And maybe to access it, we use a apostrophe and then the name of that key or that column, and we can print out the first value if you want to. So very importantly, dictionaries are unique. Unlike lists, items in dictionaries are unordered. There's no first or last item in a dictionary. All right. So as you model more complicated things, you find maybe use for dictionaries or lists or combination of them. So the more you practice, the more you realize which is more useful to use. All right, so that's the end of this lesson.